Reading the Filipino Seaman's body language and verbal communication. Effective communication between Filipino seafarers and the foreign nationals is more than simply using a language to speak or write. Effective communication between them requires a mutual understanding and a two-way transfer of ideas, plans, objectives, and the values of what is right and what is wrong, of what is good and what is bad. Thus, there is a need to deal first with cross-cultural understanding before dealing with the issue of language. Culture is an integrated system of learned behavior patterns that are the characteristics of members of any given society. It includes everything that a group of people think, which results into customs and concepts of self, which result into language and morals, do, which results into values, beliefs and rituals, and make, which results into attitudes and manners. The Filipino culture has the following kinds of elements: native, which is Indo, Negrito, and Malay; introduced, which is Spanish, American, Chinese, Arab, and Japanese; and contemporary. It is a mixture of the native, introduced, and other recent cultural influences. This mixture and admixture gives complexity to the Filipino character as well as contradictions in the Filipino culture. A Western officer, for example, will use a solemn, serious, and sometimes angry tone, which, when he wishes to stress a very important point, where the Filipino uses joking or teasing manner to deliver the same very important message in order to save face. As a Filipino, he uses humor very seriously to deliver a very formal message with a smile. The existence of different types of culture has meant difficulties in communication and in understanding of cross-cultural boundaries. For this reason, when foreign officers come in contact with Filipino seafarers, a very complex process of adaptation or an exchange of the elements enumerated above happen. They use different languages, hold different values, and have no common loyalty. When people see, hear, and understand things differently, problems often arise. People who speak different languages have trouble communicating, but even when both speak English, language can be a problem. Likewise, the same word can have different meanings. A foreign officer, for example, told his Filipino subordinates to salvage an equipment which was temporarily not being used. His Filipino subordinates dismantled the equipment and placed it in the junkyard. Salvage for the Western officer means to save or rescue a property. But for the Filipino subordinates, this word means to kill or to destroy. Again, to kill or to destroy. Problems may also arise from actions and not just language. Using the hand or one's index finger upward to call a person in Norway is quite common and is not regarded to be rude. On the other hand, using one's forefinger or index finger upward to call a Filipino is considered degrading and only used for animals. A downward gesture of the hand should be used without making the arc, since this will appear too dominating. Communication is the process of triggering a response. Interpersonal communication involves the triggering of the response in one person by another, either consciously through verbal and non-verbal means, right? And intercultural communication is the special case of interpersonal communication where cultural influences are sufficiently great as to interfere, make different, or likely result in the lack of understanding or misunderstanding because of the internal responses generated by the experiences from different cultures. Cross-cultural communication is a special case of intercultural communication resulting from racial identification and different cultural influences that create barriers to interpersonal communication. Language can be an instrument for of terrible misunderstanding. A wrong vowel here, a misplaced consonant there, can change meaning significantly. Misunderstandings go beyond using a wrong word or odd phrase. Trouble more often lies in the use of idioms and in nonverbal expressions. Thus, to communicate effectively with Filipino seamen, masters and officers must understand the Filipino culture. So let's proceed to understanding Filipino values. Father Frank Link identifies social acceptance, economic security, and social mobility as the three basic aims that predominantly motivate and control the behavior of the Filipino. Social acceptance is defined as being taken by one's fellow for what he is or is believed to be, being that image in accordance with his status. Attainment of social acceptance is assisted by two intermediate values which are recognized as important and satisfying goals. These are smoothness of interpersonal relations on one hand and sensitivity to personal insult on the other. Smooth interpersonal relation is the ability to get along with others in such a way as to avoid outside signs of conflict. Sensitivity to personal insult is the guarding of the loss of social acceptance against two sanctions discouraging behavior descriptive of those relations such as hiya and amor propio. Economic security as a goal means the desire to possess the essentials for a decent human life and opportunities for improving oneself. Social mobility is the advancement to a high social class or position for the improvement of one's lot and one's family, as well as for the enjoyment of accompanying rewards, influence, power, and prestige. The value concepts that are predominant in the Filipino culture and relevant to the Filipino seamen are hiya or an emotion-laden attitude involving honor, dignity, and pride. Amor propio or self-esteem or the tightened emotional state of hiya. Utang na loob or the principle of reciprocity. Bata-bata, which means protege and carries some functional rights. Pakikisama or the tendency to level with someone who is out of line, and the correcting of antisocial attitudes by disallowing privacy. Pilosopo, which undermines the person who questions prevailing ideas or norms. And paternalism, which implies a deep respect for elders in consideration of ages. These values give it rise to a particular set of attitudes that the Filipino seaman manifests in all his undertakings. The more conspicuous attitudes attendant to the mentioned values are: number one, the tendency to cooperate without hesitation. Number two, being sensitive and conservative. Number three, the tendency to be dutifully accommodating and hospitable. And number four, the respect for elders. Care should be given in dealing with these attitudes and the values because the Filipino has a tendency to overemphasize them. These Filipino attitudes can be misdirected. How? For one thing, pakikisama, which underlines the cohesive strength of a Filipino informal group, tends to work for the dominant individual. For example, in an informal group, should he, as a member of that group, resist an officer or a master for one reason or another, he can always justify his stance. He stand with his group and cause them to resist also the same officer or master. The other one, the hiya attitude, which epitomize and supports the sensitivity for the Filipino seaman, which could also work against the officer as he is forced to restrict his control over the Filipino seaman in order not to hurt the latter's feeling and ego, lest he should resist the officer and result in the mentioned speculation. The other one, ang bata-bata system, of course, has also its limitation as it breeds envy among the rest of the officer's subordinates, causing him to be segregated from them. The other one, the pilosopo concept, is a defense mechanism against the act of upgrading oneself in front of another person. When the officer is of the same level with his subordinates in terms of seniority, in age and experiences, such plays are not advisable as this may give rise to a serious conflicts unless one gives in to the other. Ideal interpersonal reciprocal relations among Filipinos are illustrated by the following statement. No word is uttered, none, not an act is done, especially if it is concerned to a fellow human being, without thought of how others will be affected by it. Thus, Filipinos are most eager to fraternize in their places of work and would feel frustrated and irritated if prohibited from doing so. Now let's proceed to Filipino values related to Communication. Sorry. Effective communication in Filipino seafarers must be based on functional Filipino values, attitudes, and beliefs. A Filipino approach based on Filipino values, attitudes, and beliefs must be adopted in communicating with them. Principles of communication must be Filipinized in the application. Management by Filipino value system has 5 generic concepts referred to as key principles. These key principles thread through the critical steps of the communication process. To review, the key principles are: number 1, identify the Filipino values of the people. Number 2, clarify those values. Number 3, look for the positive polarity of those values. Number 4, apply the positive polarity of those values. And number 5, reinforce the positive polarity of those values. For effective communication among Filipinos, consider Filipino values such as: number 1, amor propio. Filipinos highly value their self-esteem. They are very sensitive, but they are also understanding of others' feeling. They like to be listened to. As an employee, they like to be praised when they do a good job. Number 2, social acceptance. Filipinos like to be liked. They are eager to please everybody, especially people in authority. Acceptance by peers and superiors is for them to measure of personal worth. It is very difficult for a Filipino to admit mistakes because his self-respect is at stake. He is also sensitive to negative remarks. Number 3, smooth interpersonal relations. Filipinos like to get along with everybody in the name of pakikisama, di ba? Especially very first time in the onboard ship. Meaning helping each other, extending oneself to others. Ability to put oneself in the shoes of others with the readiness to help. He can be very cooperative. Filipinos will appreciate being asked for help in solving problems or assisting in the performance of some task. This joint effort of doing a task is very much like the spirit of bayanihan, meaning working together without any ulterior personal or material motive, or balikatan, meaning Working together to elevate oneself and others from some problem or crisis, or shall say, batarisan, meaning working together for some personal and material motives. Let's continue. Number 4, paggalang. Filipinos have deep respect for elders, parents, superiors, teachers, supervisors, and officers. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hiya. A social sanction that regulates all aspects of Filipino social behavior, reinforces the obligations to respect parents and elders, to obey authorities, to be loyal to one's family, and to repay an utang na loob or indebtedness. Number 6, utang na loob. The feeling of obligation or indebtedness which developed when one had done a favor for another. Number 7, euphemism. A Filipino's indirect way of communicating used to avoid hurting the feelings of others, to be socially accepted, and to maintain smooth interpersonal relationship. Number 7, go between or to lie. A person who acts as a middleman or intermediary between two or a group of person. And number 8, bahala na. A kind of fatalistic or optimistic resignation which can either mean a withdrawal from one's engagement or crisis, or a commitment to do one's best, leaving to God, or faith that what is not within one's control. Maintain and enhance the Filipinos' amor propio or self-esteem while communicating with him, and you will get results. The Filipino is known to be highly sensitive to and understanding of others' feeling. He likes to be listened to. He likes people and superiors who are understanding and considerate. A related concept to enhancing self-esteem is praising a Filipino when he does a good job. He enjoys external signs of approval and liking, especially when it includes outward manifestation that make clear to him that he is liked by those with whom he deals. It is a tremendous source of satisfaction for him to be given a pat on the back. One should use positive preliminary remarks in communicating with a Filipino to put a pleasant note to an unpleasant truth, opinion, or request. The Filipino resents harsh tones because he associates it with ill feeling. Officers and masters should guard the tone of their voice in speaking to Filipino seafarers to preserve good feeling mood. But assuming that a correction has been made, there should follow the casual inquiry about some personal concern of the individual corrected to soften the impact of correction. This is the KKK method. That is, kiss, then kick, then kiss. Sometimes this is also called the sandwich method. Good news, bad news, good news. This assures that the basic relations of the two parties had not been affected by the correction. Although Filipinos are generally authority dependent, expecting the persons in authority to take charge, to know and tell him what is to be done, some Filipinos will appreciate very much being asked for help in solving a problem or task. This joint effort of doing a task is very much akin to the spirit of bayanihan or balikatan, which is a Filipino approach. An officer can use this approach by offering an invitation to help out. He can build on the Filipino seafarer's desire to be cooperative in the name of pakikisama with the person in authority, his superior. In fact, he can use the Filipinos' desire to place authority to bring the seafarer into a participative problem-solving mode of interaction. Let's now proceed to Understanding the Filipino seaman's body language. Close to 90% of a message is transmitted non-verbally. Non-verbal communication can be body language, facial expression, and deliberate and facial action. The three dimensions of any communicated message are verbal, vocal, and facial. The impact of each can be broken down as 7% verbal plus 38% vocal plus 55% facial equals total impact. The non-verbal aspects of speech are tone of voice, accent, pitch pattern, volume, stress, timing, and voice reflections such as coughing and giggling. Those of body language are facial expressions, gaze, eye contact, gestures, and other body movement, body posture, contact, proximity, orientation, and appearance. Take a case of space between two persons. Perhaps you have met a Filipino seafarer aboard a ship and have tried to talk to him. He stands in front of you and his face is only 10 inches away from your nose. You might be uncomfortable with him standing so close, so you back away from him a foot or two. However, among Filipinos, standing close to someone means that being friendly. He caught mistakes or he could mistake your backing away from him as a sign that you don't want to be his friend or he smells as you find him not an agreeable person. You have insulted him without even knowing it. In many Western cultures, such gestures as a raised clenched fist or various types of handshakes are forms of greetings which usually mean we're united or we're friends. There are ways of communicating shared feelings of friendship that are intended to be used among members of the particular groups. Never use this gesture to Filipinos because raised clenched fist means we're against you. Filipinos greet each other with their eyebrows. The eyebrows are raised in recognition and to answer yes. Establishing eye contact is a recognition signal. A smile to go with it becomes a friendly hello without word. The handshake is an accepted form of etiquette in Philippine society. It is absolutely an insult to refuse to shake hands with someone among Filipinos. Even if your hand is broken or not shakeable for some physical reason, you must offer your other hand with an apology for not being able to perform the proper courtesy. There was a time when it was proper for a woman to offer her hand to respect her preference. Now it is expected that both people will automatically put forth their hands together. It is not rude to forget to offer one's hand, but it is definitely a bad manner not to accept a hand that is offered. Among Filipinos, even business rivals are expected to perform this small courtesy with each other as an acknowledgement that their common humanity is more important than money. Among Westerners, a limp handshake means weakness, and a tight one means vitality and friendship. This is not so with Filipinos. A limp handshake simply means respect and courtesy to the other person, while a tight one can be construed as rudeness or malicious intent if the other person is a woman. Let's proceed to the Filipino smile in English. The Philippine smile etiquette has been misconstrued by Westerners. Filipinos smile when they are happy, sad, angered, disappointed, unsure, embarrassed, wish to avoid direct confrontation, when they have caused some minor offense, when they need something from you, and for many hundred reasons. Feliz Santa Maria and Corazon S. Alvina in their article A Smile a Day Keeps the Doctor Away cite some norms among Filipinos regarding smile. Number 1. Even when you do not like your guests, welcome them with a smile. According to an old Philippine proverb, excessive courtesy can harm no one. Number two, accept defeat with a smile. Chin up, say other cultures. Number three, smile in awkward situation to diffuse the situation and clear the air. Keep smiling and create the impression that all is well. Number four, a smile is a convenient reply when a person does not want to say something unpleasant. Number five, smile is the best way out of having to say something that could create controversy. A smile is the best guerrilla tactic during war. Spaniards and Americans, during their attempts at colonialism, branded the Filipinos as traitors because the Filipino would smile and then treacherously attack when one's back was turned. The Filipino seaman speaks and understands English, but his English has some peculiarities due to the native language he speaks in his locality. The following are some guidelines for you to understand his English. Number one, some Filipinos do not distinguish between the short I sound and long E sound. Thus, pig will sometimes sound pig. Filipinos do not give much importance to the complex and illogical phonetic variation English gives to the five vowel sounds. Number two, Filipinos from Pampanga tend to pronounce F as P because their dialect's alphabets does not have an F. Filipinos from the Ilocos provinces do not distinguish soft TH or final D sound with the phonetic sound coming off hard and coarse because these provinces are mountainous and rocky. People here need to work hard to survive. Thus, the way they communicate is also hard tone. Number four, Filipinos from the Visayan provinces, especially those from the fertile provinces of Iloilo and Negros, apply lifting musical sounds to words, even when they are mad or angry. This is because these provinces are bountiful with sugar and agriculture. Number five, to give names a Frenchified touch of class. The use of D before a word is popularly used such as the Pinoy. Number six, for many Filipinos, all Caucasian-looking persons are Americans and are also called Joe, which is the hangover of G.I. Joe in World War II. Number seven, some English words among Filipinos have restricted specific meanings. This time means the period after the Philippine-American War and before World War II between 1902 and 1941. To affix means to expedite paperwork and even facilitate illegal transactions. And that ends the topic on reading the Filipino seaman's body language and verbal communication. And I would like to acknowledge the author of the book, Reading the Filipino Seaman, authored by Tomas D. And on the next video, we're focusing on the reading the Filipino values at work and more topics to be discussed on the coming videos on reading the Filipino Seaman. So don't go away.